Video games are great, and many video games even have great mini-games within them as well. Some even deserving of their own standalone games outright. Many games have their own version of 21, Blackjack, and even 21. Card games and gambling in general are a relatively common theme in gaming, and no, I don't mean in the microtransaction kind of way. In this video, I'll be going over my top 10 favorite mini-games in gaming, in order to bring to light some of the fantastic ways that developers have brought so much enjoyment from the seemingly tiny and even missable details within these games within games. Regardless of your personal opinion of The Last of Us 2, there's absolutely no denying that the audio design in this game is absolutely superb. I can't think of a single time while playing through this game where I passed by the guitar without picking it up and strumming around and playing a few chords. Just to be absolutely clear, I can't play guitar in real life, but playing The Last of Us 2 and just messing around with how it sounds makes me want to get a real acoustic guitar one day. And not just so I can be that guy at parties. I feel like you can just strum random chords on this thing and it still sounds lifelike and fantastic, and I genuinely felt a wave of calm wash over me once I started playing. And I don't think I sound half bad either, but I'm not the expert. There could definitely be a lot more to this minigame, if it even counts as one, but I think its simplicity is actually what makes it hit the mark so dead on. I also want to give a quick shout out to the sound design on cracking open safes as well. You can literally skip the puzzle solving or having to find hints or clues, and just jump straight to cracking the safe from audio alone. Seriously. Hold on, I'm gonna stop talking for a second, you need to hear this. Isn't that amazing? Ugh! The sound design alone in this game is just mwah, chef's kiss. Persona 5 Royal is a game with many mini-games. And regardless of whether you're flinging darts, swinging for the fences, or catching legendary fish, there are plenty of ways to keep yourself distracted in your downtime. One notable addition to Persona 5 Royal is the addition of the card game Tycoon. I grew up playing a westernized version of this game myself that many people call President, although we always had a different name for it growing up. Honestly, I'd rather play this game than Uno any day. Basically, you split the deck of cards between 4 people. 3s are low, 2s are high, and jokers, all puns intended, beat them out. With the only exception that the 3 of spades can beat a joker, but only the joker.
That was a surprise.
Playing pairs or even triplets together means that subsequent players have to do the same. And it's important to know that 8s end a round immediately. And you'll also need to know that playing 4 of a kind is called a revolution, and it reverses the values of the cards, making 3s high and 2s low. One game of Tycoon consists of 3 rounds. The first round, everyone plays as a commoner, or neutral. The first player out becomes the Tycoon. The second player becomes rich. The third player is poor, and the last player is the beggar. And this order can change again from the second round to the third. In the second and third rounds, the Tycoon gives their 2 worst cards to the beggar and receives the beggar's 2 best cards in return. Although worst cards are subjective. And the same happens between the rich and the poor player, but they only exchange 1 card each.
Passing.
One notable rule is that if the Tycoon doesn't get out first, then they instantly become the beggar. I never grew up with this rule personally, but it is what it is. It's a fantastic game in and of itself. And honestly, it's great to kick back with the Phantom Thieves and see who can be the most cutthroat in a friendly game of cards. I especially love playing rounds with Kechi and Ryuji. Regardless of whether we're playing on casual, serious, or cutthroat, Akechi always seems to come second, while Ryuji always seems to come last. For real? I jump back into the game every now and again just to play a few rounds here and there. The very first time that I played Cutthroat, I somehow managed to become the Tycoon and win all 3 rounds in a row. Sometimes, just the luck of the cards. I do wish there was a bit more control over the game. Having the ability to toggle between certain house rules would have been nice, and being able to specifically pick which characters you get to play against would be nice too, instead of just randomly shuffling the players. But both of these are so minor that it's almost not even worth mentioning. I love Tycoon, or President, Daifugo, Beggar, or whatever else you want to call this game.
have to.
This game is a ton of fun and reminds me of playing cards with my dad and his uncles when I was a kid. We never played with revolutions or 8 stops. Regardless of the exact rules, I love this game.
What?
Red Dead Redemption, like many video games, has playable games of 21. But it also has a unique game mode that I haven't seen in almost any other video game. Liar's Dice. This is a great, quick, and easy game. Each player starts with a cup and 5 dice, and it functions basically the same way as the card game Cheat. Everyone rolls their dice and keeps the results under their hat. Pardon the pun. Then one predetermined player has to make the first bid, and each player has to subsequently decide to either call their bluff or raise the bet. This continues until someone calls the bluff, everyone shows their dice, and then they total them up. Whoever is wrong permanently loses a die, and then the players re-roll, and the cycle continues until only one player has any dice left. Personally, I rarely ever bother to call a bluff as being dead on, but if you call it correctly, then both of your opponents lose a dice. If I can confidently make a higher bet, then I almost always will, in the hopes that the enemy AI will incorrectly assume I'm trying to bluff them, or that they'll re-raise and I'll be in a better spot to correctly call their bluff. If you play your cards right, I guess if you bluff your dice right, then this gives you a definitive advantage over your opponents. There's also an elegant suit you can acquire in the game that allows you to cheat by peeking at another player's dice after they've rolled. It's a great game that's simple enough, and it's easy to fall into playing this game just for leisure or even just to increase your in-game currency. For some reason, this game isn't in Red Dead Redemption 2, and that sucks, because this game is awesome. What's the point of having the technology to make photorealistic images if I can't abuse it to play a digital variant of a dice game that has existed for over 4 centuries? Bleh. Kingdom Hearts is a series that arguably has too many minigames. Regardless of what world you visit, there's usually some skateboard to ride, some fantastical creature that needs your saving or capturing, or even just boss battles that like to spice it up. There are more than enough mini-games to come back and replay after you've beaten the core game, whether to set a high score or just for fun. But there's one specific mini-game that actually stands out to me above the rest: the command board. This is like if Monopoly and Trouble were in cahoots. I normally hate playing Monopoly and Trouble, but the command board provides a few notable differences that really set this game apart for me. First of all, you're not just always heading in the same direction and just circling around the tiles from the outside of the board. This is actually much more like Mario Party, but without the mini-games in between each round. I think that would have been way too meta anyways, but that's also part of why I love the command board too, since there's no distractions. There are still 4 corners, or tiles per se, on the board that you have to reach before heading back to start. A red, green, yellow, and blue space spread out across the board with a number of different ways to get to them. The strategy of routing your paths, to me, is the best part of the command board. It adds an element of control to the game that would otherwise just be another boring old dice rolling simulator. And there's also an element to this game that can be used to level up your in-game command cards, which is definitely nice and the idea is appreciated, but I usually play the command board well after I've completed the main campaigns. Each board is styled after a unique Disney World or Square Enix theme from the Birth by Sleep video game. And I'd be lying if I didn't say that half the fun was trouncing Tigger, Captain Hook, and all the other Disney and Kingdom Hearts characters. It's a great game, and I'd definitely take this over Monopoly on a rainy day, anytime. Fallout New Vegas has a myriad of great minigames. As to be expected, what happens in Vegas, spreads throughout the entire Mojave. It wouldn't be Nevada without blackjack, roulette, and slots, but the game that you have to know that I'll be talking about is actually Caravan. This game is definitely much easier to play in a digital format. I definitely love that I don't have to worry about counting the card values and figuring out when the game has been won and concluded. All I have to do is keep making plays until I win. Each deck of Caravan must have a minimum of 30 cards, and you can collect loose cards from vendors all over the place. This game is played with 2 players building 3 opposing caravans, which are piles of cards, in the goal of beating your opponent in at least 2 of them. In order for a pile to count as a caravan, it has to have a minimum value of 21 and a maximum value of 26. If you and your opponent both have a caravan in the opposite place, then only the higher value of the 2 counts. In that way, it's almost like playing 3 hands of blackjack at the same time against one opponent. The jack, the queen, and the king can be played on either side of the field. Jacks remove a card as well as any kings attached to them. Queens switch the direction of play, and kings double the value of a card. There are jokers too, but I'm not even going to get into that. Every time I make a new save file in Fallout New Vegas, I just get right started and build a deck of jacks, kings, 10s, 8s, and 6s as quickly as I can. You want to play the 10 with an 8, with a king doubling the 8, or you want to play a 10 with the 6, with the king doubling the 10. This game has a lot of depth and a lot of style. I also think that if they had made the best number for a caravan an odd number, let's say 27 for example, then this game would have been better from a competitive perspective as it nerfs the exact playstyle of deck that I happen to use. But if I'm being completely honest, using this deck is part of what I love about the game in the first place. The home run contest in Super Smash Bros. Is a testament to my willingness to spend hours of my life, 10 seconds at a time, trying to perfect a combo against an inanimate object. I was thrilled when they added the home run contest back into Smash Bros. Ultimate, and I've been deliberate and diligent about setting a personal best home run distance with each new DLC character as they drop. One of the best combos I've ever gotten was with Minecraft Steve of all characters. Using the Enderman skin, I spent hours, literally hours, just trying to route and reroute all of the best strats that I could come up with until I had something that was somewhat consistent. And just until I got lucky with my input timings, if I'm being completely honest. Like, look at this. I lock the sandbag in the air with a magma block to get some damage on it while I give myself enough time to drop a TNT, blow it and myself up with lava, launching us both and canceling me out of the lava animation, allowing me to iron drop, launch the bag in the air, and then because I had routed this so many times, I knew where the bag was going to land, so I wind up for a swing with the bat and bam. It's freaking amazing. I love the home run contest, and that's just what I can do with one of the characters. There's something about launching that darn sandbag further and further until you realize that your own personal best record is now nearly insurmountable to even yourself to topple. And then you come back later, once you're a little bit better with that character, a combo, or even just the game in general to push the limit of how far you can launch this sucker. It is so satisfying to push yourself and your favorite character to their absolute limit, just to see how well you can dummy this dummy in 10 seconds or less. It's this little, bite-sized challenge that has nearly infinite room for permutations and growth. To a limit, of course. But I know I haven't fully reached that yet, and it's so easy to jump back in for just one more round. The Battle Tower is a ranked game mode within the Pokemon games that unlocks once you've beaten the core story, and allows you to battle online or offline against some of the best opponents that Pokemon has to offer. And in Pokemon Sword and Shield specifically, it has never been easier to dive into the depths of the Battle Tower. This version of the Battle Tower comes pre-packed with offline Battle Tower teams. The Basic Team, Skill Team, and Tough Team are all great for singles. Although I always opted to use my own Pokemon in singles because, first of all, of course I did, and secondly, because there's no restriction to using legendary or mythical Pokemon. And you have to know I'm going to lead with Zacian's Intrepid Sword for those semi-Swords Dance setup starts. Zacian gets in there and just goes brrr. And honestly, my 2 other slots were just kind of gimmicks. I had Life Orb Eternatus to spam Dynamax Cannon against Leon's Charizard, and if that doesn't work, then I had Imposter Ditto in the back so I could topple boss monsters with their own setups. And that was good enough to get me into the Master Ball tier in singles. Although with a bit more investment into stats, and at the very least switching out Eternatus for something more viable, I could definitely have fit a lot more time into playing offline singles. Now, where I spent most of my time was actually in offline doubles. There are 2 great teams that you can borrow for this too. The Rain Team and the Slow Team. And in fact, earlier this year, I made a video about how you can easily reach Master Ball tier in Battle Tower doubles using the Slow Team. I'll keep it brief here, but effectively, if you just lead with Torkoal and Hatterene, get Hatterene to lead with Trick Room in order to reverse the speed orders, and get Torkoal to protect just so you can start spamming full health eruptions, and that will wipe out about 90% of the teams that you encounter alone. I spent so much time playing this team in offline doubles that I can't even describe it with words. Looking at this team now, and if I were going to play this again, I'd definitely swap out Hatterene for Porygon 2 as my Trick Room setter, and if I'm being completely honest, I'd probably swap out Caperja and Lucario for Glastrier and Regieleki, and maybe I will revisit the Battle Tower soon and give that team a go too. I can't speak highly enough of the Battle Tower and Sword and Shield for both having easy and convenient rental teams, both offline and online, as well as allowing me to use any and all Pokemon I'd like, legendary or otherwise. I've spent hours in the Battle Tower, and just talking about it again is making me want to revisit it again with a brand new team and setup. I don't think I could ever possibly describe what makes the Chao Garden so much fun in Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. The closest comparison that I can make is like if you combined a Tamagotchi with The Sims. There's something so immediately infectious about raising these little creatures and watching them transform and grow with you. If you've ever played this game as a kid with your friends, then you already know what I'm talking about. And if you didn't, then you might not ever understand the compulsion to replay the same levels over and over again just to get items for these Chao to consume. I ended up getting most of my Wild Canyon runs to under a minute flat to hit all the Chao boxes and nab the dragon while collecting as many other wild animals along the way. Half the fun of raising Chao is watching them change form and change shape based on whether you raise them with heroes or villains, whether they're strong in one stat or another, and whether you feed them specific animals. I'm a big fan of the dragon, the phoenix, and the unicorn Chaos myself, and all of this is in the pursuit of creating the ultimate speedster and karate master. I've done it. I've created the ultimate life form. You wanna go, bro? Take this outside, bro? My little buddy Chao could destroy you. My Chao could beat your Chao any day. Or if you're more of a flight than a fight kind of guy, then you could always throw down on the race course. My buddy can even outspeed the ever-elusive Chaos Chaos. Yeah, he's kind of a big deal. You can win all of the medals by winning in karate and racing competitions, but honestly, for me, the greatest part of playing the Chao Garden was seeing my friends' Chaos and showing off my own, which also gave me a reason to replay my favorite levels over and over again. Maybe listening to this, you're right here with me, or maybe you'll never quite understand, but there's definitely something extremely memorable about the Chao Garden, and I can't even count how many times I've replayed it over the years.
Wouldn't mind a few rounds of cards.
Can I interest you in a game of Gwent?
Know you're busy, but you up for a round of Gwent?
Playing a games of cards?
Up for a few rounds of Gwent?
That's right. Anyone who knows me should know that Gwent, a fully realized card game minigame in The Witcher 3, is a game that would be completely up my alley. But if you're asking me, I'd almost say it's more accurate to say that the plot of The Witcher 3 is an excellent side game to play while scouring the world for Gwent players. And I'm only half joking when I say that. Don't get me wrong. The Witcher 3 is a fantastic game in its own right, one of the best that I've played in recent memory, in fact. But playing Gwent in The Witcher is just as much fun. One of the very first missions you ever play is a match of Gwent against a mysterious stranger in a tavern that gives you his spare cards for a deck. From then on, it's a matter of challenging every new merchant, innkeeper, and important NPC to a round or two of Gwent. And every time you defeat a new opponent, you obtain a new card. So now playing, winning, and collecting cards are all a part of the same eternal cycle of Gwent. Unique players often grant unique and powerful cards upon defeat, while presenting a unique challenge to you to improve your deck in order to beat them in the first place. And if you plan to collect every unique card in the game, then you're going to have to defeat each and every unique character. And you'll have to defeat dozens and dozens of random players as well. If you try to collect every single Gwent card, it's going to be just about the very last thing that you ever complete in the game. It's one of the longest side missions I have ever seen in a video game, and it's hands down my favorite. Even if there are a few easily missable cards, and even if it becomes increasingly more difficult to track down new Gwent players over time, thankfully they made the DLC version of this mission much easier to track. There are 4 main decks in the core game, with a 5th deck unique to the Blood and Wine DLC. There's the Northern Realms, the Nilfgaardian Empire, the Scoia'tael, and Monsters. And in the DLC, there's also the Skellige deck, which has its own tournament arc. I personally prefer Northern Realms. It's the first deck you get, and it has reasonable versatility. And it's relatively quick to play. Hands down, my favorite mission in the game were challenging all of the best local Gwent players and entering major Gwent tournaments. It is downright addictive to chase after collecting the best and most unique cards in the game. The only thing better than winning a match of Gwent on the first try is defeating an opponent in a rematch after re-optimizing your deck. Honestly, I play my deck differently in the in-game tournaments than I do against most other opponents. If you don't load your deck full of spies and decoys, then you'll be hard-pressed to win any tournaments. And although it pushed me out of my comfort zone, I did ultimately enjoy being forced to play as the Skellige deck in the DLC tournament. Playing the tournament matches against the best Gwent opponents in the game has to offer was the most exhilarating part of the game for me. Gwent is fantastic, and it will likely go down in history as not just one of the best mini-games in gaming, but also one of the greatest card games in modern history. Maybe that's a bit of a stretch, but it's genuinely fantastic. This game is so good, and it even has its own standalone game. I wish the same could be said for a lot of the games on this list. So now, you must be wondering, what could possibly be at the top of this list? I'll start by saying that the Grand Theft Auto series has one of the widest ranges of minigames that any video game could be expected to offer. In the GTA 5 casino alone, there's slots, blackjack, horse racing, and roulette. Not to mention that this game also has darts, tennis, and golf. Even if we don't have pool or bowling anymore. Cousin, let's go bowling. But no, the best minigame, hands down, is good old-fashioned burning rubber. Regardless of whether you want to call it driving, street racing, or even specifically the hunting pack game mode, being behind the wheel of a car in this game is phenomenal. I have never played a racing video game that can even come close to how much fun I have driving around in Grand Theft Auto. In the past year alone, I can't even tell you how many, literally hundreds and hundreds of hours I've put into this game just driving and racing around. Grand Theft Auto, like many other games that prominently feature motor vehicles, has hundreds of vehicles to purchase, commandeer, and drive. And even more cars get added each year with updates to the GTA Online. I'm personally not usually the biggest fan of online-only experiences, but driving around in the Scramjet, as well as any number of souped-up sports cars, can really make you appreciate just how much of a need for speed that you have. And that's not even considering all 50 of the stunt jumps and all of the crazy car flipping that you can do. Just watch some of these clips. Are you kidding me? I mean, obviously no one would have this level of control over a mid-air car in real life, but that's exactly the kind of controls that make driving in Grand Theft Auto so much fun. I could not possibly even count how many hours I've spent modifying cars, racing around the airport, and drag racing cars with friends. And that's not even including all the time spent jumping over ramps and crashing into each other, hit maneuvering friends, and all other manners of nonsense in this game. And then there's the hunting pack, car, sumo wrestling, and many other game modes and manners of crazy bumper car style shenanigans. If you're the kind of person that prefers Gran Turismo or Forza Motorsport for hyper-realistic driving, then power to you. But if you're like me and prefer an arcadey style bumper bumping, crashing, car flipping experience, then I genuinely think there's no better experience than Grand Theft Auto. It's the kind of game mode that you can completely focus on and plug into for an immersive experience, and it's also the kind of game mode where you can just go brain empty and just spend hours relaxing and speeding down the highway while listening to some tunes. And the versatility and the time sink of driving in GTA is easily what makes it my favorite array of minigames and game modes. Alright, well that's my list of top 10 video game minigames.
Let's turn the tables.
Hopefully this inspires you to check out some of these fantastic games. And if there's any minigames that you think I missed, then feel free to drop a comment below talking about one of your favorites. I've heard that I should check out the game Orlov in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and when I finally get around to catching up with that series, I'm definitely looking forward to playing that. I also wanted to mention that I didn't include any of the minigames from the Mario Party games, just because there's so many fantastic minigames in that series that I could easily make a top 10 video of just those alone. Alright, well that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope I'll see you again in the next video. Peace.